Now I'm very excited to welcome back one of our longest and most knowledgeable guests and people when it comes to handicapping college football to the odds breakers and Mr. Kyle Hunter from huntersportspicks.com. You can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Hunter Picks. Kyle, here we are, my man. We're week 7 already. I cannot believe we're like halfway. What's going on?
Man, it's good to talk to you, Kiev. Always nice to chat some football. And man, I can't believe it's like halfway over. Where does this time go? Like we look forward to it all the time for like the summer leading up to it, and then it just absolutely flies.
Oh, it does. It does. It's pretty soon. Holidays are coming. I already put my things or my Halloween stuff up, so maybe scare some neighbors or something. Hopefully, I don't scare anyone with my picks this week. College has been up and down, and having an okay year. I'm a little down in college. I'm up in the NFL, kind of sitting pretty good though. I'm still up as a whole, and we want to keep it that way, Kyle. And that's why we bring in the heavy hitters like yourself, long friend of mine, and I do appreciate all the time you put into it, man. It's great to have you back.
Absolutely, it's great to be back, Kiev. I always have fun chatting with you. We go back quite a ways, and we give each other some good ideas through our conversations too. I feel like we just kind of pull that knowledge, and it's always a good time.
It is, absolutely. And it's always good to kind of look back when it comes to like what you did in the preseason and what you were thinking in the preseason. So that's kind of why I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to give you mine too. A couple teams that you were wrong about from your preseason notions, and there's a few. I have more than a few probably, and just wanted you to throw maybe two teams out that you were wrong about, and maybe why, and what your thoughts are on those teams.
Well, I'm going to give you 3. I'm going to give you a bonus here. We'll go 3 on each. First, UTSA. I bet over 7.5, pretty big for season win total. I don't think they're going to get there at this point. Frank Harris has been injured, so to be fair, it hasn't gone as smoothly as what you thought it might. But I think the Roadrunners are probably in a little bit of trouble. They're not as good defensively, the secondary, as what they have been in the past few years. I think UTSA, it's a team I've had to downgrade in my power ratings because I had them too high to start with. That's 1. 2, Pitt. I mean, I didn't bet anything on a season win total for Pitt, but I definitely didn't expect Pitt to be this bad, Kiev. Like, what happened here? Narduzzi, if he's not already, is going to be on the hot seat soon. Jurkovic, however you say his name, has been a bust. Now there was talk of him either playing tight end or now they say, well, he's not tight end, he's a backup. He was supposed to be a really good pickup for Pitt. It just has not worked. And then, this is the other one that I would say, West Virginia. I thought West Virginia defensively would not be nearly as good as they've been. I think the Big 12 in general, outside of Oklahoma and Texas, are weaker than I expected. So West Virginia is kind of benefiting from that. But I thought West Virginia, if they won, was going to win because they could run the football, try to play keep away because their defense wasn't very good. Their defense has been really good so far this year. So props to them kind of turning things around on defense.
Well, there you go, man. I have quite a few myself. And it's great to do this exercise, and kind of goes to show you, no matter how much research you put in, sometimes you're going to be wrong about some stuff. I think the goal is to be right over 55% of the time, and you're doing well in your season win totals. Let's face it, we do a little bit more juice on our season win totals at times. Sometimes we get some plus money, but I think it's important to keep focus and find out where you went wrong and look back and try to learn. We learn every day in this business. I'll give you one. Vanderbilt. I thought they'd get over 3.5 wins, man, and I just thought this was finally the year they would actually step up here and do something. I thought AJ Swan, being a senior, would be able to lead this team, and they had a lot of people returning as well. And the loss against Missouri was bad. I thought they might sneak one of those at home, either Kentucky or Missouri. But what really did me in was the at UNLV loss. I thought, if they could get UNLV, then maybe they get a chance of getting someone later, like an Auburn or something. But now I'm kind of dead in the hole. Georgia at Ole Miss, Auburn at home, at South Carolina, and at Tennessee. There's no chance they're going over 3.5 now. So I am bummed on that one. Another one that I was wrong about, and I guess I bet them to make the playoffs. It was Clemson, Kyle. Dabo Swinney, I just thought, when people were down on him, it's time to kind of look back at him. And it's kind of, he's falling just flat on his face, not adjusting to the recruiting and the way that you have to pay players with NIL and the transfer portal and things like that. And it's really showing here. That first loss against Duke, I knew I was toast. And then the ugly loss against Florida State, where he just kind of gave up the game. You just wonder how this team's going to keep going throughout the regular season. So that's another one I was definitely wrong in. There's still a few other ones that are pending. I had LSU over 9.5. So that one, if they don't beat Alabama, I lost that one as well. So I'll give you 3 of them that I was wrong about. But hey, we also got to talk about what we were right about, Kyle. So why don't you give me a couple that you were right about so far, at least? I know we don't want to jinx anything, my friend.
Oh yeah, we're always got to be a little bit superstitious. I mean, if you're a sports bettor, you have to at least be a little bit superstitious.
Yeah.
Minnesota under 7.5 season wins for me. I knew they were down a lot defensively. Rossi's a good defensive coordinator, but Minnesota is not nearly as good as they've been the last few years. The offense isn't great. The defense can no longer just completely carry the day. We've seen now enough evidence that Minnesota is not a good team. I mean, how did they blow that game against Northwestern? And then, Michigan is Michigan, obviously, but they gave them a good thumping there at Minnesota. Not a good team. San Jose State, not a team that I necessarily was wanting to bet on or against, but a team that I had as a team I wanted to bet overs with this year. Because that San Jose State defensive line is much weaker than it's been. They had some guys that got to the NFL from that defensive line. No longer could they just dominate on the defensive front. Chevin Cordero is still a pretty good quarterback. The offense is not bad. The defense no longer even close to as good as they were. So have hit a couple overs on San Jose State. I think you might have done that too as well, Kiev. So that I wish I had taken more of them because they've had a lot of overs so far this year, but have hit a couple of those. And then the final one I'll say is Texas State with Kenny taking over down there, the new head coach. I knew they'd play a lot faster, be an explosive offense. So taking overs with them has also been profitable.
Oh, nice. I'm glad that you jumped on that. There are some teams that have been playing faster, have not been coming through in the over too. So you just get some of those teams, or you can say South Florida, Old Dominion, a couple of those have been kind of burning me up a little bit, but at least we got a lot of the pacing ones correct. Your usual suspects, like, your Air Forces and things like that, your Iowas are always dead under teams. So people have been cashing those. So that's always good. A couple I've been right about so far. Michigan State's under. Now I know they will have 2 wins against Central Michigan and Richmond, but not looking too good because they still haven't even played Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan yet. And if you look at it, they have to go to Indiana and to Minnesota, which isn't exactly easy. Minnesota's not great, but I don't expect them to beat Minnesota or Rutgers. And I think Rutgers is better than what we expected kind of coming in too. So I think they're toast. So I was really happy to bet that season win total under in that thing. So far looking good. Don't want to jinx it, of course. Another one that I was here's one that I was worried about, and I still maybe should be worried about, but it's looking a little bit better after last week, is Oklahoma State. I went over 6.5 for plus money. I know there's a lot of people going under on that, but they have a few wins now. And you see with teams like TCU and what's going on with them. I mean, they're 3-2, Oklahoma State, but they can beat, actually, they don't even play TCU, but they possibly could get Kansas this week. It's a short spread. They got Cincinnati at home. At UCF is a little shaky. Houston's a much worse team than we thought, and they got BYU at the end. So I could definitely see 4 wins coming in their future to get me over that for plus money. So I'm cautiously optimistic with that one, but I'm kind of hoping that it comes through. So we'll see. We'll see on that one, my man. So a couple other ones still pending out there as well. I do have Georgia Tech's under, but man, I don't know how the heck they beat Miami last week.
Mario Cristobal. What are we doing?
I think I pounded on him enough this week, but man, it's just, I just had to bring it up one more time because I can't fathom having 20 against the 6 in blackjack and hitting to try to get 21. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. And this is the second time he's done it, Kiev. How do you not learn from the first time when he was at Oregon and didn't take a knee and lost the game? To me, that's the biggest issue is if you have this happen once, there's no way you can let it happen again. Somehow he did.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still I'm still hopeful for Georgia State to win the East at plus 1,200 of the Sun Belt. They don't even have to win the Sun Belt, just the East. I know it's going to be between them and maybe Georgia Southern now. So kind of cross my fingers on that future. But there's a few out there that I'm still hoping to hit here. But good stuff, man. Let's move on to the next question here. And I'm curious your thoughts on totals this year. Now, we talked about it preseason, and I could go pull up the numbers, but how has it affected so far with the rule change now that we're 6-7 weeks in of the clock not stopping on first down?
Yeah, this has been a really fascinating thing to keep a tab on, because before the season, you and I talked, Kiev, about how you could see everybody on your, Twitter or X timeline or any kind of social media saying, well, unders are going to be free. Here comes the unders. As soon as everybody thinks that, it's usually not a great idea. And, you think the odds makers didn't know this was coming. The odds makers are great at their job. They make really good adjustments. Let's look at what they are so far this season. 218 overs, 208 unders. So 51.2% overs. Kiev, the over's done pretty well the last few weeks here. So it's kind of been, the adjustment has been made. And we've even had some weather unders that kind of kept the games under the total in some of the others. And yet the over has done pretty well. Weather will be more of an issue going forward this weekend. And, as we get to late October and November, there's going to be plenty of those weather games. But, the non-overtime games this year, 206 and 205 to the over.
I know.
Yeah. 12-3 when you add the overtime games in. Obviously, overtime is quite the killer when you have the under, and I already lost that. I remember the Akron, Indiana game where it was on bad beats. That was a big under for me. Oh man, those are tough. You don't forget about those very easily. But I think that things have leveled out pretty well. This is a spot where right now, I think that, we're back to what we kind of were in the past. I don't see any huge edge for just betting blindly and under or betting blindly and over. What I do think is that you need to keep in mind how much a team runs. You get a team like an Air Force that's running 94% of the time. If they keep running at that kind of rate, that clock is really going to tick with no first down stoppages. We've seen some pretty big differences in some of these teams' time of game, length of game. Now, I don't want to get on a tangent, Kiev, so I won't say too much, but there are a lot of TV ads that have been added in that really make it to where we're not getting too much quicker games. And I'll just say personally,
that's the real reason why they did it, buddy.
Right. And if you want to say, what would I want? I don't want less football. Why would I want less football? So, I don't love the rule change. I understand why it was made, but really, we get a lot more advertisements. Having said that, I think a team that runs consistently, you're going to see some of those really quick games. I think that will affect the totals more than one of the high octane, fast paced teams that are throwing it around a lot. So keep that in mind. I don't have any, hard data to say these teams that run at this percentage have gone under at this, but, intuitively it makes sense that I think that will continue to be the case a bit more, but adjustments are made. I think it's been, it's a case of the market is efficient. Everybody knows that these rules are coming out. I think the under did do pretty well in the first week or two. And we saw the first half under do better than the full game under for a good while. And now it's kind of leveled off. They're about the same.
Absolutely. And I think I had an epiphany a few weeks ago. I'm like, why are these replays still taking so long? You can get an eye in the sky guy. And then I'm like, oh, duh. These replays are purposely long so they can fit more commercials in and stop the timeouts. Right. And that's what they've been doing as well. And that's just an absolute FU to the fans pretty much of the sports. Like, you do not need the same guy to look at his play 100 times, but you're seriously trying to make this about ad revenue. Come on, guys. There's a lot of issues to figure out. And I don't want to go down that road too much either, even though I do go down that road too much. But either way, I think that the top totals, though, like if you look at Oregon versus Washington, and we're going to discuss that game, it's 67 and a half. I think last year that would have been 72, 73 in this situation. I know it might be a little bit of rain, but, I'm noticing the larger totals are a little bit lower than like the 40s or the 50s totals. I think they went down maybe 2 points or so due to this, but it's just as you go up higher because of the clock stoppage, it's actually affecting it more. Kyle, is that fair?
It is, and actually, those really high totals have gone under more than they've gone over so far this year too. I don't have the rate exactly in front of me. I think it might be something like, totals of 65 or higher have gone, 60% to the under so far this year. That does make some sense in general too, because it's hard to get off as many plays as you had last year, even if you're trying to play quickly. You're gonna need everything to go right if you want something to get to 75 or 80 points or something. So the days of seeing the totals that were upper 70s probably over at this point.
For sure, my friend. Well, let's get into some games then and see if we can find something for our listeners this weekend. We have Wyoming versus Air Force. Air Force laying about 10.5 points at home. The total is 42.5. So, Kyle, the last time I almost bet Air Force, I forgot to. They're at home laying 10.5, and they ended up covering the spread quite easily. It was just a game or so ago. I actually missed a couple good bets last week traveling back from Disneyland. 400-mile drive. It's not so easy to bet when you're in that situation. But either way, here they are laying double digits against a Wyoming team that also has a pretty good defense. This is one you picked. What do you have for us in this?
Yeah, I mean, I will say when you go to Disney, weird things happen. You get kind of off the rest of your schedule, that's for sure. And now you're back, and here we are back to college football fully. I think in this one, it's two really good coaches, Kiev. I think both these guys are top, 15 or 20 coaches in the country that get the best out of their talent. Craig Bohl has done an excellent job with Wyoming, despite the fact that if you look at team talent rankings, Wyoming's like bottom 10 in the country, and yet they still are able to maximize talent very well. Calhoun's a really good coach. They know what they do well. They consistently do it. I just referenced Air Force there a minute ago as one of those teams that those games are going to go really quickly. I think the Air Force games that are televised are going to be the ones that, they get over. We always see somebody, block off like 3 hours for the TV, and then they usually go over. I don't think Air Force games are going to go over that very often because they're going to be clicking that time off pretty quickly. Air Force had a bye week to get ready for this one, Kiev. Wyoming pulled the outright upset over them last year. 17-14 as a 17.5-point underdog. Air Force's quarterback had been injured. He came back for that game, was kind of playing only somewhat, 60% or something like that. And that definitely hurt them quite a bit. This is an Air Force team, like I said, is running at 94% of the time. Wyoming is 74th in yards per carry allowed at 4.14. Not great. I do think Craig Bohl's teams defend the triple option well consistently. I think this will be a lower scoring game. Kiev, I think my favorite thing in this one is a Wyoming team total under. I don't think Wyoming's going to score very many points. Wyoming running back is injured, Whaley, and he's definitely a good player for them. Andrew Peasley, the quarterback, I don't trust him. He had one really good quarter against Fresno State last week, but he's been very inconsistent. He is 4 for 22 on passes of 20 yards or more. Now, I know 20 yards or more passes, you're going to have a low completion percentage, but 4 for 22 is still pretty drastic. I don't think they can have the ability to stretch the field that will bother the Air Force defense. So I like Air Force to win. The problem with covering this number is if you think it's going to be a low scoring game, you're asking them to win by 11 with the total dropping pretty quickly here. I think I like Wyoming team total under the best in a spot where I don't see them scoring many points.
Which is going to be what, 12 points or so? If you think 40, it's at 42. So it maybe be 30. No, sorry, 24 to 15 or something. That'd be 39. Yeah, it would be 16 and 17 points, I would think, right?
I think about 16. Yeah, 16 would be about the total here. Team totals, they usually come out Thursday or Friday, so not consistently across the board ready yet, but as long as it's above 14, I would like a team total under here for Wyoming. It will be above 14. I think that'll be the type of bet you want to bet early rather than late, because I think there will be other people that want to bet that as well.
Well, great call on that, because this game was 17-14 last year with Wyoming winning, and this is a revenge spot for Air Force, but Wyoming's also coming off that big win, kind of a letdown-ish spot. You beat Fresno State as a home dog. It's, a spot where you kind of breathe, and then you go and have to face a freaking triple option team. That is not fun. A letdown spot, it's getting beat up like that in the trenches. It doesn't sound like they're going to score a lot of points. I would be afraid that they get desperate, and I guess a little bit, and then maybe Air Force does put one on them. But man, Wyoming's defense has been good. I'm kind of liking the under 42.5 too. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think that either team's going to get a lot. And I do respect Craig Bowl against triple option, just like you said. You kind of nailed it, man. That's just, I agree with everything you said there. And under City for me, some unders are just, even though they look really low, they're not nearly low enough. We can go to our college basketball days to talk a little bit about that with like UAB and some of those slow playing college basketball teams. So that's interesting. Well, cool. Let's move on to the next game. And I picked this one. We'll get you going with my Badgers here. And they're facing Iowa. And I would argue that maybe this is their second best rivalry under Minnesota. I think Minnesota is the rival by default, but these two teams hate each other as well. But the Badgers are laying 10 points with a total of 36, Kyle. That is... what the heck is that? That's almost, it was 17-3 or something, 17-7. Is that what you're saying? Those are like all within the realms of possibility here. Now, here's my problem with Iowa, and they're so hard to bet sometimes. They could lose to anybody, literally anybody. I mean, it could be New Mexico State and just have a bad couple screw ups on defense, and they just have no offense. But at the same time, they can beat very good teams because how many times has Iowa won a game, Kyle, while being outgained on offense? How many times? Probably more often, probably more of their wins the last 2 or 3 years, they've been outgained in, which is just mind-boggling. But they do it with field position. They have the best punter in college football. He loves to just nail it and just sandwich that thing on the 2-yard line. That's going to happen. And then he forces people into bad situations because that defense just sucks them up and causes interceptions. They get a lot of field goals. But Iowa's offense is also horrible themselves, ranking 132nd in success rate, like literally second to last in success rate. Iowa, what the heck, man? That's just a bad stat. And I don't think Deacon Hill's that good of a quarterback after they lost their starter this year, right? He's like 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, I believe, or something pretty low. I'd have to relook at it, but Deacon Hill is not as good as McNamara. But here's the problem with Wisconsin. If you could tell me, Kyle, that their turnover margin is going to be equal in this, Wisconsin wins 10 to 14 points. If you can tell me that, I don't believe that's going to happen because Tanner Mordecai, he's tend to throw some picks and get baited in a situation. That's what Iowa's defense is. 3 TDs, 3 interceptions so far. I can't trust them. If Fickle's smart, he plays the field position game against them. It's almost like you almost want to punt at the 50. It's like, I actually want to punt. I'm going to punt on first down just to pin you down there so I can get a couple field goals. It's a crazy way to look at it. But I think that's really the sauce to beat such a good defensive team like Iowa. Now, Wisconsin's defense is okay, Kyle, but it's not as good as it was in past years. They give up over 5 yards per play, and they've played some weaker competition. So that worries me. Your Buffalo, Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern is actually pretty good, but they played some weaker competition. Like I said, this is not bettable for me because I don't know what the turnover margin is going to be. If I knew it, I'd play it. But my number is 8 via power rating wise. I have Wisconsin by 8, so I'm going to lean to Iowa. What are your thoughts?
Kiev, I saw the line movement here just in the last few minutes that the total's getting bet down from the 36. I see some 34.5 showing up. I mean, 34.5. This is like an academy total, like service academy.
They're ignoring Air Force and betting this under. Wow, that is amazing.
Who wants to bet the over? I mean, I'm not rushing to bet the over. I'll tell you that. Iowa finds ways to win games, like you said. Special teams, they're going to force defensive plays where they score on defense. They're going to return punts for a touchdown, block a punt. You never know how they're going to win a game. They find a way to do it. But remember in the preseason, Kiev, when Iowa was going to have this new offense and Brian Ferentz, they've had this, here we go, this is going to be completely different. It turns out it's all the same. There's been no change at all. It's still the same old Iowa offense, 132nd success rate, same old. And yet, the Iowa defense, even though they lost quite a bit, still really, really good. Every single year they do the same thing. They're 7th in yards per play allowed. They have given up only 9 plays of 20 yards or more. That's insane to me, Kiev. They do not give up big plays at all. You're not busting explosive plays on them. Let's put it in perspective. They've given up 9 plays of 20 yards or more. In the same amount of games, USC has given up 38. Now that says a lot about both of those teams, honestly.
It
But
does.
this is an Iowa defense that you're not going to get big plays against. I think Fickle's going to do a good job at Wisconsin. Um, I think I would say so far the problem for Wisconsin, the passing game hasn't really worked near as well as expected. Mordecai has really not been a tremendous fit, at least thus far. Like you said, he's had some bad turnovers. They're 101st in QBR on offense. He's not been bad necessarily, but he's not been good enough. Also, they have a lot of drops, 6 drops from their wide receivers in the last 2 games. I think you could argue that wide receiver or pass catcher is probably the weakest spot for Wisconsin. This is a Wisconsin team that is not a team I'm anxious to lay points against with against a really good defense. Red zone regression for the defenses possibly. Wisconsin has only allowed opponents to score on 10 out of 16 trips into the red zone. So a lot of stops on 4th down or turnovers forced. Iowa's only allowed a TD on 7 out of 16 trips into the red zone. That would make you think there's going to be a little bit more scoring. But I don't want to bet on there being more scoring in an Iowa game, Kiev. I can't do it. My lean here is Iowa plus the points. Deacon Hill, kind of a interesting quarterback in that he's a big dude. This is a big guy that looks a little bit different playing quarterback. Probably not that big of a step down from McNamara because he hadn't been very good. I just think that this is one of those ugly games that I know you'll be watching. It's your Wisconsin team, but I'll say that I think I'll just check the score afterwards on this one, Kiev. I think I'll have the TVs on some other games.
Oh, the pain. Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's not like McNamara was lighting up 4 TDs, 3 interceptions, 51% completion percentage. But Deacon Hill's at 37.5. And that's 56 attempts. I mean, McNamara's only had 90 himself, so it's not like it's looking pretty bad between the both of them. But yeah, I don't advise anybody to watch this game because you have way better games this weekend. And but I will say, I just hope my Badgers win a stinker and keep those hopes coming for a Big Ten at least championship showing against one of the big dogs out there. So that's gonna be fun. Let's move on to another game: Missouri versus Kentucky. Kentucky's laying 2.5. Total 52.5. Kyle, you picked this one. Let's see what you got.
All right. So Missouri backers last week, Kiev, what a terrible loss there with that Brady Cook turnover. I hope you didn't have that one, did you?
No, thank God I didn't. I would have had that one because it was on my maybe list. And so App State was on my maybe list last night too. So I'm glad I didn't take that. I did take a hit on Jacksonville a little bit, but man, that was just there's some bad beats last week, and Missouri was one of the tops.
Absolutely. I mean, Missouri was winning most of that game. It was Missouri was the right side in that for sure. I think this is an interesting situational spot for the two teams because Missouri blows a lead in a game that was one of the biggest games they played in a long time. They get LSU to come in there. LSU, every game's a shootout. We know that. It's going to be 50-40 or something. It's going to be hard for the odds makers to set totals high enough for LSU games going forward because that defense has just been not nearly good enough. Jaden Daniels still very good. Kentucky gets absolutely drubbed by Georgia. I knew that Georgia was going to have one of these games at some point. I didn't know when it was going to come. There it was last week, just like 600 and some yards to like 180. I mean, just complete domination. I think Missouri has outperformed all expectations so far this year. Brady Cook has played better than expected. Missouri's wide receivers are excellent. Burden's a major problem. He's going to be a very good NFL player, I think. Missouri, defensively, they don't look great. Kentucky's defense is above average. I think they kind of have a chip on their shoulder based on the way that they gave up so much last week. Kiev, the reason I like this one some, though, is Missouri's recent games have been skewed by who they play against as far as how high the totals have finished. LSU, like I said, everybody plays a shootout against them. Vandy, no defense. I believe Vandy's 7-0 to the over so far this year just because they give up so many points. And you got Memphis, a really fast-paced team. So here, Missouri goes and plays a team in Kentucky that plays completely differently. They don't play fast. They want the lower tempo game, lower scoring game. A little rain and wind in the forecast here for this one too. 18 miles per hour wind, gusts to 28 as this one's kicking off. So I'm going to take the under here with Kentucky and Missouri as my favorite play here.
Look at that. The under 51.5-ish right now, right? Let's see if that's changed here. And yep, 51.5. All right. I get it. I get it. Kentucky's not going to want to get in a shootout with this team. And 51 is a key number. So that's what you want, is that hook right there if you're looking to bet this under with Kyle. Quietly, Missouri, I kind of have them might be as maybe the better team slightly. I have them so close power rating, to be honest with you. I don't have Kentucky has a massive home field advantage. I'm at the spread at 2.5, but if you look at just EPA margin, Missouri's is higher, 40th in adjusted EPA margin, with Kentucky's as 51st. Missouri's had the harder schedule on Sagarin, 74th to 120th versus Kentucky, and finally Kentucky got tested against Georgia. And I don't know, God, was that a test? That was an embarrassment, man. I had line value with Kentucky last week at 17.5, and then I had closed at 14.5, and wasn't even sniffing it in the second half. They showed their true selves, and they're a good home team and they're a bad away team. It's just kind of like the Florida situation that I talked about before on your Twitter Spaces. Missouri choked away that game last week, and it's tough that's got to be tough on the kids, but they're still 5-1. They still have a good quarterback in Brady Cook, and he's playing some good football right now. I didn't look at it much from a total perspective, but I understand the under. But they do have a lot to play for, and my number's on the number at -2.5. I think this could be a 2-point game or something, a very close game, and maybe not one that's a shootout at the end, just kind of one of those run the ball and hope for the clock to drop. So I get that. No play for me, but you're onto something maybe there with that under. Let's move on to the next game, Oregon versus Washington. And Washington's -3, and the total is 67. Now, Kyle, I picked this one, and this is maybe the most exciting game of the weekend if you like offense. So if you don't want to watch Wisconsin versus Iowa, maybe you wait and watch the Oregon versus Washington. And guys, is this a night game? I got to check that again. It might be.
I think it's 3:30 Eastern.
Okay. Oh, 12:30. Yeah, it's on exactly when Wisconsin's playing Iowa. So if you're on commercial, do not switch to Wisconsin versus Iowa. Instead, go to Cal, Utah or something. No, that's kidding. This is awesome. I've been waiting for this matchup. I actually bet both of these teams to win the Pac-12 at 4-1, Kyle, a piece. Roughly 4.5 to 1, and maybe one of them before, because I just feel like one of these two teams are going to win. I'm glad I was kind of right about this. It's unfortunate that one's got to go down, but we'll see what happens. Number one and number two in success rates against each other, 8.81 yards per play for Washington, 8.06 for Oregon, Kyle. That is just fantastic. It's great football. But I had to take the dog here, and I could be wrong because it's freaking Bo Nix on the road here. It's not like something I've lost in this situation on Bo before, but that was his Auburn days, and he did not deserve to win that Texas Tech. That was the second worst bad beat, same situation, pick six that happened in Missouri this week against any Texas Tech bettors. But you got to look at the fact that Oregon, they're number one in adjusted EPA margin. Washington is 13th. So Oregon's got the nod there. Both of the strengths of schedules, Washington ranks higher, but I disagree. Washington played Arizona their first day without Jaden DeLora. It was their first time with Fika, their new quarterback. I just think that, it's hard to say that Oregon's strength of schedule is worse when, they played a hot Colorado team and just destroyed them. They had to go to Texas Tech. Washington went to Michigan State. I don't understand why Sagarin has them all off. I don't always agree with Sagarin in his strength of schedules. And this one, I don't. But this game could be one on the defensive side of the ball. And that's where I think Oregon has more talent. If you look at the recruiting rankings, Oregon's like average 10th the last 3 years or so. And Washington is 47th. Oregon's got more talent, and they have the higher ranked defense. Now, when you look at this, if you equal the strength schedules, you got the higher defense, you're going to grab 3 points in this situation. And unfortunately, you have to rely on Bo Nix, and, Oregon's didn't show great on the road yet, but I just don't think that Washington's been truly tested yet either. I will say that I wrote this total down at 72 myself, and that's where I thought the market would be. This would have been one back in the day. I would have bet in the over. I don't know if I'm a little scared to with the clock and everything, but I'm going to still lean to the over on this. I still think this can be the most exciting game around. And I still think that this could be a fourth quarter, even if you're looking a little down, that you get 2 touchdowns apiece in a field goal or so per team to try to make this. And if, God forbid, if it goes overtime, you're in a good situation if that happens as well. Of course, we never bet for that, but I'm going to lean to the over, and I'm going to take Oregon +3 for 2 stars.
I think this is a tough game to handicap because, I mean, Oregon, I understand where you're coming from with strength of schedule. They have played 3 games against Portland State, Hawaii, and Stanford. So, I mean, they've gotten to run up the margins in those games. So I guess that would be the argument for Oregon's strength of schedule being pretty low. Oregon will be the best defense that Washington's faced so far this year, though. This was a shootout last year, over 1,100 yards in the contest last year. Washington won at Oregon 37-34. Penix threw for 408 yards. I think Oregon's defense is better than last year, especially in the secondary. I will still say, though, that Kalen DeBoer with Michael Penix is scary on offense. I mean, they have a fantastic offense. I think DeBoer is one of the best coaches in the country as well. I don't think I can bet at Kiev as far as the dog here. We're going to find out whether Bo Nix's road game is still a thing or not. This is like the perfect spot to see if it still is. I will say a cautionary thing about laying points with Washington. Washington has gotten a ton of penalties this year. It hasn't really mattered in the games they've been in because they've been so far ahead, but 94.2 penalty yards per game. That's dead last in the country. That could matter in a game that has a tight spread and you're playing another really quality opponent. I don't want to bet the side here. Oregon's 5-0 against spread so far this year, average ATS margin of +12. So they've been very good. I don't want to go against either of these teams, honestly. So my lean is the over. I will say some rain in this forecast. Now, it rains obviously in Washington a lot, not much wind, and just rain by itself isn't necessarily a big negative for points because, it's tough for the defense as well to get their footing. So I'm going to lean to the over, but like you said, I'm a bit hesitant to take a really high over.
Both will come off the buys as well. And it's if you look at the bottom half of the schedule, I do agree Oregon's was easier, but Tulsa and Cal, I couldn't believe that Cal scored that many points against Washington as well. It's look at the injury report. Washington is a little bit banged up. I mean, they got some guys that should make it, but they're a little bit banged up on defense here. And Oregon themselves, their kicker they lost, and they lost to Winnington too. They're running back a couple weeks ago, but they should be able to fill in nicely there with the recruiting. Yeah, it's a great game. I can't wait to watch it, but I'm leaning to the over as well. So I'm going to consider that a little bit more. I know that you said the higher totals have went down, and that is concerning as well. I think you got to check the weather, and the weather has just been so important for some of these high totals as well. And this week itself in the NFL as well, the weather is factoring in a lot of games. USC Notre Dame will be talking about the weather. There's just a lot of weather coming in. And I would be cautionary to bet on the passing team when there's a lot of wind, even a little bit of rain. So keep that in mind. 26 miles per hour winds for Iowa versus Wisconsin as well. So it looks like that's why that under has been still hit. It's like a big running game between Iowa versus Wisconsin. Who's going to win out on that? So it's a field position game. That certainly makes me lean the dog as well on Iowa, which is very scary. Let's move on to the next game. We have USC versus Notre Dame. And you picked this, Kyle. I bet this, though, too. I'm all over this game. I love this game. I'm going to expect that we align on a few things. I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what you took in this one. I thought this was a game that we had to talk about regardless because it matters so much. I mean, USC, while they haven't played as well as people expected, everything's still in front of them as far as their expectations and where they want to be at the end of the season. USC was so fortunate to beat Arizona last week. I mean, I watched almost entirely that whole game, and Arizona was so good offensively. Arizona had a 56% standard down success rate in that game. That's off the chart high. Really, really good. USC defense, how are they still this bad, Kiev? I don't understand. They keep getting better talent. They get transfers to come in. Everybody always says, well, this is the year here. They're going to get better. And they just aren't getting better. Alex Grinch not getting the job done there with that team. USC is 99th in strength of schedule so far this year. multiple close calls against inferior opponents talent-wise. Now they go into South Bend, play a Notre Dame team who I want to know, Kiev, who set up this schedule for Notre Dame? I mean, this is just absolutely brutal. You go and play in week 0. You play every single week. You play road games against Duke. You play at Louisville. You had the Ohio State game that was obviously a massive game. Now, I mean, no break, no bye week to this point. Now they play in this one. Notre Dame has been put in a bad spot by their scheduling here for sure this year. I think Notre Dame's better in the trenches than is USC. The rain and gusts are pretty important in a game like this. Kiev pretty consistently seeing over 25 miles per hour gusts for this game. Goodness, I mean, who really wants to bet a USC under Kiev? This is so uncomfortable. That would be my lean, though. If I had to bet something, this number has gone down some. I would have to hold my nose if I bet that one. As far as the side, USC is 87th in rushing play success rate allowed. Notre Dame probably runs the football a lot in a game like this. I think Estime will have success. I'm not sure if there's still 2.5s available, Kiev. I know there were 2.5s yesterday. I've seen quite a few 3s. I like Notre Dame some if you can get a 2.5. 3, I think, is a fair number here.
I did bet this game, and I'm looking back to see if I took the money line. I think I did. Let's see here. This is NFL. Took the money line at minus 128 on this just to be safe, And so, but I still like it at minus 2.5, and I'd give that out as a free play at minus 2.5. It's kind of siding. I just got a good number, It's minus 148 in a lot of books now, From a fan perspective, I'm bummed for Notre Dame. They just had that really rough schedule, like they said, and their athletic director might be getting replaced because of this. What a way to ruin a good team. Put them in, and who knew Jeff Brown would be this good too? We knew he was good, but I didn't think the first year he would do this. This is ridiculous. So Louisville did have a great defense last year too, so we kind of went to the perfect situation. A team already with a great defense that just needs a little help on offense. Bring in Jack Plummer, and wow, that Louisville team's a contender now. USC's defense, like you said, is horrible. They've given up over 100 points their last 3 games versus ASU, an injured Colorado team, in Arizona, man. And that is just bad. They were lucky to get out of Tucson last week.
Very.
2 matchups that I like for Notre Dame, even though Caleb Williams is a top pick, is that they have a secondary that can stop Caleb Williams and slow it down. Guys like Xavier Watts, Ben Morrison, and Cam Hart. They have guys that will be playing on Sundays. And the Irish rank number 9th in passing success rate and 4th in opponent QBR. And their schedule says enough that they've played some very good opponents for me to really trust those numbers, Kyle. I love the rushing matchup. USC cannot stop the run, 69th in opponent rush EPA. Like you said, something like 80-something in success rate. USC might be able to run the ball at 5 or so yards per rush. It's in the 5s, but they haven't even played a top 50 team. Yeah, not yet. I mean, it's like they haven't even played a top 50 team. What do those numbers look like when they finally start playing good competition? They haven't. That's concerning to me. Notre Dame's strength of schedule, much better than UFC's, and they should be able to move the ball on the ground. They average over 5 yards per rush against the top teams in the nation. Even NC State's a little bit of a hard team to play. They went to NC State, to Louisville. They played Ohio State, Duke, very good Mike Elko Duke team. They're going to run all over them, and they're going to control the clock in this game. I like Notre Dame minus 2.5, Kyle, for 2 stars.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I think also, if that weather does come the way it's been looking all week, that has to help Notre Dame. I mean, because they're the team that wants to run the football consistently.
For sure.
USC can't stop the run nearly as well as Notre Dame. So I think if that weather comes to fruition, that's another bonus there.
It certainly is, my friend. Well, let's go to a little hodgepodge before we have to go. I swear to God I didn't set this up, Kyle, but I noticed that Purdue's playing a particular team this week.
Oh my gosh!
And there might have been something that about Purdue versus Ohio State, but Any prediction in this, baby?
Kiev, you have too good of a memory about this. I knew I'd remember it, but I didn't know if you'd bring it up again. This has been several years now.
I swear to God, I didn't ask you because of that. It just happens to. Maybe it was so subconscious. I didn't know, but I gave you a little crap for it, and it was only because I wish I was Ohio State. I'm the Badgers. I don't win anything, but just know that those are the intentions.
Well, I will say this, Kiev. Ohio State's offensive line has not been very good, and I went to the game last week when they played Maryland. So hey, they don't lose every game I go to, or Ohio State, but yeah, they did lose when we went to the game at Purdue. That was not the great anniversary trip for me and my wife, but the fact that they're going to Purdue again. Look, Kiev, they've had trouble at Purdue for many years. That wasn't the only time. Purdue has knocked off a lot of top teams at home. They're the king of the upsets against those top 5 teams. Would it totally stun me if they did it again? It wouldn't completely stun me. I'm not going to pick it or anything, but I think Ohio State's probably not as good as a lot of people have them rated at this point. This is obviously coming from a Buckeyes fan. I think the Buckeyes offensive line is not getting enough push against Maryland. Maryland was stuffing them pretty consistently. Kyle McCord's a big step down, obviously, from CJ Stroud. Harrison's great. Stover's a good tight end. Igbuka's been hurt too, the wide receiver. That's a pretty big deal because he's one of the best number 2 receivers you'd ever get. So I think in this one, Kiev, I would lean plus the points on Purdue. I also would lean the under. This is another weather game, so I've seen this one flashing that's moving down. I don't know exactly. I think it's down to 49 or so. But Ohio State's a better under team than they've been in past years. They're not playing very fast. Their defense is better, not giving up big plays. So that would be my lean there is Purdue or under.
Yeah, I agree with that. Purdue doesn't have the greatest defense. They just lost their best tight end to injury. They're kind of tricky against Wisconsin. Wisconsin went there for a night game, and Wisconsin was fortunate in some situations, I thought. Purdue should have scored more than they did. I was all over Purdue against Illinois, and that worked out really well. I avoided them last week. This just feels like another screw-up situation like Loxley did when going for it on 4th down 10 with 8 minutes left on the 17-yard line. That killed my Maryland plus 19.5 by a half point. And it just feels it feels like that could happen again. This also feels like it could be a massive flat spotter for Ohio State because they have Penn State on deck. It's like almost like a sleepwalking situation while Purdue's going to be ready to make that happen again for them or try to. I lean Purdue for sure plus the points. I just don't know if I have the gumption to take it again. I'm actually lower than Ohio State than the market is by a little bit for my power ratings. It's not by a lot, but it's by enough to be a little bit concerned about back in Ohio State. I think I have this game 16.5. And so, if you look at 17 as a real key number, then you're looking towards Purdue at the 19. But it's like I said, it wouldn't shock me if Ohio State blows them away. They know they could have played better against Maryland, and Purdue's brand new coach. They have some issues themselves. Purdue's given up more points than they're scoring too. At home against Syracuse, even a team like that whipped them up pretty good as well. Fresno State beat them. This could just be when I'm really thinking how stupid I am if I back Purdue. So I'm not going to do it. But I would lean them, even though in that situation. Let's look at the Betfred odds screen and see what else is out there. Georgia Southern versus James Madison looks like a great game, Kyle.
Yeah, game.
That's coming up Saturday, and it's a morning game. It looks like it's a -6. James Madison is -6. The total is 58.5. This number tells me that Georgia Southern should be taken seriously. James Madison, definitely, I would say the best program in the Sun Belt right now, but Georgia Southern is better than people think. And this could be upset city if James Madison can't stop the pass. I didn't look into this super deep yet. I'm going to dive deeper a little bit tonight. Any thoughts on this? Have you covered it anywhere else?
Yeah, I haven't bet this game, and I don't know if I will, but I would take the points here with Georgia Southern if I had to bet a side. I think Georgia Southern has been consistently good enough. The only thing that's really stopped them this year has been turnovers on offense. If Davis Brent isn't throwing the ball to the other team, I think if Georgia Southern's going to stay in every game. Georgia Southern's defense is quite a bit better than it was last year when they were just giving up a ton of points trying to always win shootouts. James Madison, run heavy team. This is a fairly high total for James Madison. It's that way, obviously, because Georgia Southern plays so quickly. But Kiev, I think 6 points is quite a bit. I think this is a game that comes down to one of the last possessions. And if you're telling me this can be a back and forth game, I would have to lean toward taking the points.
For sure. James Madison, you have to remember, they went to Utah State and gave up 38 points. And Utah State's not that great of a team. As a matter of fact, Utah State probably should have won that game, but it was mostly through the air. They gave up a bunch to Virginia, and that's what the kind of team Georgia Southern is a, air raid team. They passed the ball 246 times to rushing 138. So even though that James Madison's so good against the run, if they're not stopping the pass, man, they're going to be in trouble this game. And my number on this game is unfortunately 9.5. I have James Madison because I do give them 2 points for home field advantage. 9.5, I have it, but I understand why it's 6. Probably not sure I'm going to bet it either, but this is one I could be kicking myself being like I was right on the handicap and I'm sitting here not betting it for some reason. They have Marshall on deck. I don't think that matters. I think James Madison is just trying to prove a point. So there you go. Why don't we do one more game, Kyle? I know we got to roll soon. Anyone you want to pick that's coming on this weekend?
Troy and Army. So under the radar kind of game there, Kiev. I'll give this as a free play of sorts here, Kiev. I like the under in this game. I think this was a 10-9 game last year, and I don't see any reason why the total should be. I know it's low. We know the total is low, but we talked about sometimes these totals are really low for a good reason. I think this one's really low for a good reason. Rain expected throughout this game, some winds. I mean, they're calling for like half an inch to an inch of rain while this game's going on. I hope that weather forecast comes to fruition here because that would definitely help. But Army 75% runs. This is a Army team that's playing slow as they always do, 131st in pace. Troy, the offense is still not there. The offensive line is very weak. And if you force Troy to run the ball more, I don't trust Troy to be able to run the ball on Army here either. So more conservative game plan with that kind of weather. I think even plays better to the under with like I said, last year, 10-9. I'm not expecting that low of a game, but I'm going to go under the total here for Troy and Army.
Certainly a field position game. I don't disagree. This is another option team that has some weather this time. And you're looking at two defenses that are very solid, kind of like the Wyoming Air Force game that we discussed before. And points can come at a premium and the clock goes very fast when you're running 75% of the time. And that's actually low for Army. They used to run more. They actually throw the ball sometimes, but they're not going to throw the ball when there's rain. There's going to be some rain and some wind here. And I just think that you're spot on looking at the under in this, and you get a little bit more points on this. You get 43.5 here in this situation. Troy, when they face tough defense, they can't move the ball, and they just try to play with their defense, and that's how they win games in many situations. I've seen a lot of Troy games 6-10, those types of numbers. So great pick on that one, man. Well, Kyle, we're out of time. Where could our listeners get your great information in place?
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, Kiev. Always fun. huntersportspicks.com is my website. You can go over there to get all my plays. You can sign up for the free picks newsletter over there at huntersportspicks.com. And, there's going to be lots of plays going forward for college football. I think I already have 6 this week. So locked and loaded with quite a few already this week. Lots of totals. If you like totals, it's definitely a good place to turn. I'm 81-43 in my last 124 college football plays. Kiev, I'm up just a little bit so far this year on the college football season. I know I've had some people complaining, like, what is going on? Like I've said before, I'm not always going to hit 70% like I did last year. We know that, but
awesome.
long-term, the record's been very good. And, there'll be ups and downs. I'm always transparent about that. But, check out the site, huntersportspicks.com. You can follow me on Twitter as well, at Kyle Hunter Picks.
Make sure you follow Kyle. Follow him at huntersportspicks.com. Kyle, have a great weekend. I'm sure your Ohio State's going to come through, my man. We'll be texting, buddy. I have no worries about Purdue. I'm just worried about my Badgers in a windy game against Iowa. That's what I'm worried about.
I don't like this like reverse jinx thing happening here, Kiev. So
All right,
if they
Purdue's gonna
lose,
whoop them.
if they lose, I'm blaming you, and you're gonna get a
All
lot
right,
of texts. No, but
all
yeah,
right.
great to talk to you, Kiev.
Talk soon, buddy.